Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today based on source material one of you sent in. It's a YouTube transcript, actually.
Mm-hmm. And it lays out a really personal viewpoint.
Yeah, it connects observations from, well, science, society, and then a personal journey into faith, specifically Islam in this case.
That's right. So our mission here is really to explore the key arguments presented in this source.
Mhm.
Essentially, why this person found truth, their truth, in Islam by looking at, the universe and how societies work.
And it's fascinating, isn't it, how it weaves these different threads together. You've got the cosmos, social commentary, and this really deep personal reflection.
Exactly. It's presented not just as like an intellectual thing, but as a path to real personal change.
So where does it start? The transcript seems to kick off with curiosity, observation.
Yeah, basically. The source mentions this lifelong interest in science, which they say actually got stronger, amplified, after embracing Islam.
Right. And the core idea seems to be looking at how complex everything is, creation, and asking not just how it works, that's science, but the deeper question, why?
The why. And they use that simple analogy, the seed growing into a tree.
Yeah, that one. Science explains the biology, the cause and effect.
Sure, the mechanics. But the question posed in the source is what actually starts the cause? What stimulates that very first step?
And they take that same question from the tiny seed right up to the whole universe.
Right. The transcript brings up how science points to a beginning for the universe. The Big Bang Theory is mentioned specifically.
And here's where it gets interesting. The source draws a direct parallel, interpreting parts of the Quran as describing everything starting from, I think the phrase was, one atom that then exploded.
Yes, that's the interpretation presented, and it's pretty central to their argument.
And they highlight this perceived match, pointing out that the universe expanding, that's also something they believe is described in the Quran.
Uh-huh. And the emphasis is put on the timing, that these weren't things scientifically proven 1,400 years ago, as the source states, when the Quran was revealed.
So the perspective in the transcript is that the Quran actually encourages looking at the universe.
Yeah, it suggests scientists could learn more by asking, what's behind all this? What's creating it? And identifying that cause, in this view, as Allah.
So the argument boils down to observing the perfection, the purpose, the intelligence you see in creation that points to a creator.
Exactly. The analogy used is simple. If there's a creation, there must be a creator. That's kind of pillar number one from the source.
Okay, so from the cosmos, the source then shifts gears, right?
Yeah.
Looks at human society.
It does. The second major observation, the individual talks about growing up in the West and seeing people who seemed lost.
Lost? How so?
Described as mainly following their desires and their ego. That's the phrasing used.
Ah, okay. And the transcript gives examples of what this leads to.
Yes. Things like constant disagreement, different opinions causing friction, even within families, separation, individualism, that sort of thing.
Which leads them to ask a pretty fundamental question in the source.
Right. If everyone's just driven by their own desires, who makes the rules? How do you decide what's good or bad?
And this is contrasted with their observations of Muslim.
Mm-hmm. Seeing them as so united, peaceful, and the reason given in the transcript.
That they had rules or a book that is coming from something higher.
Exactly. Specifically mentioning the Quran and the Sunnah, the Prophet Muhammad's practices and teachings, things they believed in together and used to, solve problems.
And this leads to a statement in the source that some might find, well, provocative.
Which bit? The boundaries one.
Yeah, that sometimes boundaries and rules are much better than freedom.
Because in their view, total freedom can lead to just following desires blindly.
Mm-hmm.
The structure, the rules, are presented as actually bringing peace.
So, according to the source, you put these two big observations together, the universe pointing to a creator and society finding peace through divine rules.
And that combination led this individual to what they felt was the truth of Islam.
The transcript describes how they felt before finding Islam.
Yeah, a sense of not understanding life's purpose, feeling alone, not grasping why good or bad things happened, just kind of adrift.
But after embracing Islam, the change described is pretty profound.
Oh, yeah. The transcript says everything started to make so much more sense, feeling completely new.
And this change, this feeling, is put down to finding peace, tranquility, and faith.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it specifically mentions two concepts, tawakkul, which is trust in God,
Right.
and taqwa, often translated as fear of God, but maybe more like a deep consciousness of God leading to mindfulness. The source says these concepts completely changed my life.
And this feeling of peace, this newfound understanding, it's all tied back in the source to submitting to one God.
Believing in one God and submitting yourself to one God, that's the core linkage made.
So bringing it all together, the source concludes by saying that finding this truth often comes from asking questions.
Asking really critical questions, yeah, and observation, especially observing nature.
And there's a worry expressed, isn't there, that people today maybe aren't asking those questions.
Yeah, the source suggests people are just not asking questions anymore, just kind of busy doing whatever they need to do day to day without that deeper look.
Okay, so if we sum up the source's main points, two big pillars. First, the universe, creation, its perceived complexity pointing to a designer, a creator.
Right. And second, the structure and perceived peace found in a society that's united by rules from a higher source. Order versus chaos, in a way.
And these big external observations are shown as being directly linked to that very personal, internal journey described in the source.
Definitely moving from feeling lost to finding meaning, peace, faith through these realizations.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? The source puts such emphasis on simple observation and asking questions.
It does.
So here's a thought to leave you with, building on that. If just looking around us, watching a seed grow, thinking about the stars can spark these huge questions about where we came from and why we're here, well, what else might we discover if we really made an effort to look beyond the surface of things we see every single day?
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.